everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. I hope you guys are all reading me live and, hearing me and getting the stream. And I'm going to go ahead and do what I did last week, which is I'm going to trust that everything is coming through before I actually get confirmation on my end, because I see other things, other indicators that our class is live. So hello, welcome. I'm so happy to see you guys all here today for us to have this live stream. I know I call them my live classes. Today is not really a class. It's just more of something fun, like a fun chat hangout. I don't really know what to call these. I was calling these the weekend lockdown live stream workshops. But welcome to all of you who are here. I'm so excited. I see many of you are actually popping into chat, which is wonderful. And I do want to take a moment to apologize. My email reminder for those of you who are on my email list, it was scheduled for the wrong time. So I had to, when I realized it didn't go out at 1, I went in and I was like, uh-oh. And so I had to really quickly edit it. So I'm so glad so many of you guys are able to be here. I do appreciate it. I hope that you guys have gotten into the rhythm that Saturdays at 2 p.m. we're going live, but I know that those emails are very helpful, so I'm glad I was able to get it out. I hope it wasn't too inconvenient for any of you guys to have to jump on quickly. So thank you guys so much for being here. Let me go ahead really quickly, and I'm just going to go ahead and do my little spiel, and we'll jump into what we're talking about today. Hello, welcome. My name is Alexis, but I'm also known as Miss Trenchcoat all across the internet. I'm an online entrepreneur, and I help overwhelmed women manage their time, energy, and expectations so they can get their ideas out of their head and onto paper and get down to business creating their dream life. So if you want to learn more about my work, you can stop by my shop and you can shop my collection of print-on-demand planners, ebooks, classes, and courses over at thecharmedshop.com. Sorry, I was a little bit late with that intro. I realized I still have my headphones in, and it kind of throws you off when you hear yourself talking in your head. Now, also, I would like to welcome the replay viewers. If you are watching the replay of this event after it's gone live, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for being here. I'm still very glad that you were able to check out today's class, live stream, whatever we're calling it, on the 10 books that have changed my life. And I just want to say, even if you're not here with me live, please feel free to interact down in the comments. They will be open, even though the live chat element will be closed. And I do check those and I do respond to people's questions. So please get interactive. And I do have a link in the description of today's event for my event calendar. So if you want to save that website, and you can always check what my future live events are. I don't have anything scheduled right now after today, but depending on when you're watching this in the future, there may be more events scheduled, and I would love to see you in a future live class. So you guys, we are doing the live class on 10 books that changed my life. And this was a class that was actually suggested to me by you, by the community. You guys told me that you would love to have me do a class or do a live stream on books that I found impactful, do a whole book chat basically, right? So I've put together 10 books that were particularly impactful for my life over the last few years. And so basically I do have a slideshow. It's pretty minimal, but you guys did say that you wanted to be able to see the book covers. So I basically put a slideshow together just to keep us on track. And I do have the book covers because I know that's helpful. And I do have the links to all the books that I'm going to be talking about in the description of this live stream. So you'll be able to reference those. So let me go ahead and do my, my shout outs to everyone, which I love to do. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you're excited about the topic, if you're excited to share your book recommendations, excited to hear about mine. Like I said, this was a class that was requested by you, and I do listen. So welcome to Teresa. Welcome, Teresa is she's one of my personal hype woman, Teresa here. Hello to Rachel. We have Linda from Puerto Rico, Nina from Oregon. Welcome, Nina. Another one of my OGs, Joanna from Texas. I have Tony from the UK, Lisa Evans in North Carolina, Renee from Ontario, Canada, Edie from Maryland. Welcome, Edie. Carmen from Texas. Is there a couple of people from Texas in Katy, Texas? Maybe you guys know each other. And Mohit, hello, welcome to you as well. Please go ahead as you're joining. Feel free to introduce yourself. Let me know where you're from. And I am asking you guys that once I'm done talking about the books today that I want to share with you guys, I do want to get your book recommendations because this was something we said we want to talk about. And so think of your titles. Don't put them in the comments yet because I'm just afraid like titles will get lost in the comments. Wait until I'm done like my spiel on my books, and then we'll type them in and I'll be able to like share them and put them on screen the way we've been doing for like the comments. So welcome Pam from New Jersey. Welcome neighbor. Tanya, hello, welcome. Okay, you guys. So as you guys are coming in and talking amongst yourselves and leaving your introductions, really quickly, let's just go ahead and jump into our like intention setting that we do, our little bit of meditative, and I'll come back and talk, say hello to more of you if more of you pop in, and then we'll get into the 10 books that I want to share with you today. Okay. So as per the usual, if you guys are with me and have been to one of these before, you know that we like to sit down. You're gonna sit up straight wherever you are. Open up your chest, right? We want to push our shoulders back, open up our chest. We're sitting with our hands upright. I'm on my desk here, so I'm going to be putting my hands on my desk. And if you're like sitting in a chair or on a sofa or in bed, you can just rest your hands in your lap, always palms up. And we're going to go ahead and start with a breathing technique. We're going to breathe in through our nose. Hold it at the top for 2, 3, and then exhale. Through your mouth or through your nose is fine. And we'll do that again. In through the nose, hold, 2, 3, exhale. Okay, again, one more time through the nose. Hold, 2, 3, exhale. And I love doing that trick. You guys keep doing that breathing as I set my intention, but I think that's I just love to share that with you guys because it's a really great technique to help you shift your energy out of more anxiety and into a little bit more of the calm. Okay, so as you continue that breathing technique, I'd like to set a quick intention for today's live together. So my purpose in creating and sharing this live stream today is to give us all an opportunity to come together as a community and relax over a topic that can hopefully be something of an escape from our daily lives. If you're here with me live today, I hope you're eager to learn more about some of the great books that have deeply affected me on a personal level. I hope this live stream inspires you to pick up a new title or a new book that might be outside of your comfort zone to help you grow on a personal level as well. As always, I do hope that something in today's stream educates, inspires, or motivates you to take the steps necessary to align your life with the life of your dreams. So that is what I wish for you today. That is my prayer for you and my intention. And with that, let's go ahead and jump in to the live stream workshop topic. Okay, so 10 books. I'm going to go ahead real quickly and we're going to go ahead and go into the, you're going to see, hopefully I did this right. Hopefully I did this right, you guys. I wanted to do something a little bit different. Good. Okay. Excellent. Okay. You're going to see that I'm going to be on screen with you as we're going through this class, and hopefully everything is positioned right. Actually, I have to cut some things off here. I'm going to get rid of that. I have to close that. Sorry. I'm just going to close a few things, and I'm going to be able to check the comments from my phone down here, which is fine. We're going to go back to full screen again. Okay. So you guys should be able to see that. I know that the title is a little bit blocked off. But yeah, we're going to be talking about 10 books that changed my life. And yeah, let's run through what you're going to learn in today's little live. First thing I want to talk about with you guys, okay, is how to gain true wisdom from reading books, okay? So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the philosophy behind reading, I would say, and then we're going to get into the books because I do want this to be as helpful and insightful as possible. I want you guys to be able to take these titles and even books in your own life and really get the most out of learning from them. So the first kind of topic we're going to talk about is the Greek concept of Gnosis. We're going to talk about the myth of the Egyptian god called Thoth. He is considered to be the scribe of the gods. And then we're going to be talking about turning book knowledge into true knowledge, okay? Then we're going to talk about those 10 books that really changed my life. And to give you guys a little bit of context about how I kind of came up with this list, I've read easily over 100 books in the last 3 years, but these 10 are the ones that really stood out to me the most and really changed the way I perceive the world and live my life, which is why I'm keeping them in this list, right? I had to cut this down. I knew I couldn't give you guys a list of 100 books that I've read. Not all of them I think are worth it for everyone to read, right? But these 10 really are, in my opinion. So all but one of them are nonfiction, okay? Although I really do consider all of them to be nonfiction in the fact that like they spread truth, right? The one fiction book, I really think although it's not a true story, it is the truest story. You know what I mean? So I want you guys to keep that in mind. And like I said earlier, all titles are listed in the description of the video, and they are, I just want to let you guys know, are affiliate links. So if you do purchase a title from one of the links that I talk about, if you want to purchase one of them, I would consider using the links to support my work. Just really quickly, if you're not familiar with affiliate links, they're just links that are tracked back to me so that if you make a purchase, I get like a very, very small commission, like pennies, for the fact that maybe like 10 cents. I don't really know how much. It's less than $1 for sure if you were to buy a book, right? And it doesn't cost you anything additional, but it helps me in a very small way. And it's just one of those things that if I make a recommendation, I would love it if you could use my links, right? So I do want to make that clear to you guys. Those links are affiliates down there, okay? So who is this class for today, right? Like I said, it's not really a class, but who's today's workshop for? This is for you if you want to learn about, the 10 books that changed my life, right? I go through a lot of books. I do a lot of reading. So when one of the books stands out to me, I think it's a big deal, and that's something that I take note of. Like I said, I read a lot of books. I can't tell. I could probably name most of the books that I've read for you, like those 100 books, but I'd be hard pressed to find ones that I'm like really want to recommend to people. So these 10 are ones that I really would want to recommend. This class is for you if you are looking for some new reading material, right? I know right now that we might have some extra time on our hands and be looking for some productive things to do inside. And I think that, some of these books would be a great idea, things that you might want to dive into while we're at home in lockdown, right? And if you love books and have some recommendations that you want to share with me, this class is also for you. Like I said, at the end, I would love it if you guys would share your personal recommendations, and we can kind of have like a whole to be read list kind of for our entire community being listed out in today's video. So once I've shared my recommendations, we'll do that in the Q&A, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And if you just want to hang out with me and the community and have a nice chat together, that is what I'm here for. This is supposed to be a little escape from daily life where you can hang out with some of your girlfriends in the community, chat with me, get some like live FaceTime with me, and we'll spend a little time together. Okay, so really quickly, for any of you who might be new to me, I want to introduce myself. Hello, my name is Alexis, but I'm also known as Miss Trenchcoat all across the internet. I am a full-time creative entrepreneur. I design and sell productivity and business tools to help other creative women get their ideas out of their head and onto paper so they can get down to business. And most notably about me, in 2014, I left my stable Fortune 50 career to work full-time for myself. I run a 6-figure, mostly passive income business from home or wherever I am at the moment. And I've taught hundreds of women my methods and processes, and I would love to pass on some of my wisdom to you as well. And so that's what we are talking about today, some wisdom through books, because as an entrepreneur, it's so important that I read a lot, right? If you're someone who is in like a sort of creative field, I do think it's very important for us to expose ourselves to ideas, new ideas, dive into different places. And I think books are a wonderful way to explore new ideas and expand our mind. We're going to talk about how to do that like really the most applicably, right? The best way for us to actually learn from books. But I'm definitely someone who believes that, if you want to be competitive, if you want to be like the best in your field, if you want to, run with the wolves, you really need to keep yourself learning, growing, motivated, and reading is a wonderful way to do that. So let's go ahead and talk about how to gain wisdom from books, okay? So reaching Gnosis, the concept of Gnosis. So humans learn and gain information from a number of different methods, but to turn information into true wisdom requires firsthand experience. Gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge. It's a knowing or mastery that can only be attained through direct contact and experience with the concept that you're learning, the information that you're learning, and then integrating it successfully into your being, okay? So I'm definitely someone who believes that everything that you read, everything you consume, everything we see really, everything we learn does become part of us. I would say that it's embedded inside of our neural net, right? Which is basically the wiring of our brain that takes all new experiences and cements it into our mind so that we kind of have a record really of everything we've experienced in life and everything that has kept us alive thus far. That's like the purpose of our neural net. So when you can truly, I think all of us have the experience of we learn something, we forget it, right? We all went to grade school, right? And there was so much information that we learned and we forgot about once it was gone to us, right? But true knowledge, true gnosis, really a deep understanding comes from an experience that is permanently embedded into your brain, and it actually changes you, right? People say all the time, like there's lots of quotes about books changing you, stories changing you, information can change you. Wisdom changes you, right? And that's because it becomes part of our neural pathways. So having that experience from a book is hard, right? Because books aren't firsthand experience, right? They are gathering information. You are learning information. You're being told someone else's experience, right? So we want to be able to use this information and have it change us, not just be like, let's say, 90 of those. I'm not saying that all of the rest of the books that I read over the last 3 years are like out of my system. They certainly aren't. But I would say that, most of them, if I didn't have a deep resonance with them, they're not something I'm carrying with me for the rest of my life, right? But definitely the 10 we're going to be talking about today absolutely are. So the word gnosis, in case you are familiar with it, I'm sure many of you are, is often used in a spiritual context. But really to truly know something from experience and to have that information reside in you, it is something of a spiritual process, the way that I see it, for sure. So you may be familiar with the word gnosis, Gnostics, within Christianity and religion and spirituality. That is a term that's been used to talk about a spiritual change that's made to people. And I think that we can use books, right, and information and turn it into true wisdom through this process of gnosis that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so since the dawn of the written word, it has been the general belief that knowledge could be handed down through the ages and among people in the collective, for the benefit of society. But we know that isn't true, right? So they came up with, the printing press, Gutenberg, right? And that was really when things were, able to be mass marketed, right? Books were able to be mass marketed. But even before that, right? The idea that we could actually take our language and turn it into writing and share information, right? That was supposed to revolutionize the world, right? It meant that information could be passed down and someone could learn something and other people could learn it secondhand through the writing. But we know this actually doesn't work out the way that we intend it to. History often repeats itself because there's a difference between experiencing a lesson firsthand and it changing your being and just reading about it, right? We all talk about this. I mean, right now, we could say that we live in unprecedented times, but we know that that's not true. We know that people have gotten through similar things, maybe even worse things, obviously, than what we're going through right now. And yet we still haven't learned from that past, right? I hope this doesn't sound too political to you guys, but I don't know, living in the US, you think we would have been, a little bit more prepared for what's going on right now, right? Do we not learn anything? What is all of the purpose of all of our money and power and knowledge, right? If we were not going to be prepared for something like this to happen, right? So, history repeats itself. Obviously, having a historical record, having books and information, it's not true knowledge. It's not true knowledge until you've gone through the firsthand experience. Right? So we don't want to go to a surgeon who has never operated before, right? We don't take kids out of medical school who don't have, actual, experience, surgerying on people, operating on people and go to them, right? We don't want somebody who doesn't have experience, right? We don't want to go to lawyers who don't practice law, right? We want people who actually know what they're doing, have true experience, not just people who've read maybe all of the books on a subject. But the world has been flooded by pseudo-intellectuals who read books but never really experience much firsthand. Now, I'm not going to say that there's doctors and lawyers that are pseudo-intellectuals, but, I think we all can find examples in the world around us of, someone who, there are people out there who claim to be experts, read all the books, but they really don't have the firsthand knowledge, the true gnosis to really be standing as an authority on a subject. And I'd say that right now with, fake news, media, and everything like that, all of the controversy that just surrounds the topic of media, I think we know this to be true, right? That there's a lot of people who claim to be experts that are talking heads that really, they don't have experience, right? They might be very book learned, right? But they don't have the firsthand experience. They don't have the true gnosis, and therefore it's almost like the blind leading the blind. There's this great quote that I really love from the physicist Niels Bohr that says, "An expert is a man who has made all the mistakes which can be made within a narrow field," which really shows that true knowledge comes from experience, and not just successful experience. It comes from failure as well. Failing over and over and over trying to do something, right? Really, narrows the field for what the possibility is, right? You can fail at something 100 times, and the 101st time could be the time you finally figure it out and do it right, right? So real knowledge comes from experience. Real expertise comes from experience. Does this mean that books aren't still relevant? You can't still learn from them and gain true gnosis? I don't think so. We'll talk about it, okay? Next, I want to talk to you really quickly about the myth of Thoth and why he's kind of an important we'll say historical, mythological figure, in this concept of why book writing, book learning really doesn't pan out very well. So Thoth is the ancient Egyptian god of scribes, writing, and knowledge, right? All variants of knowledge. He was kind of like the father of all intellectual thought. He's often depicted either as a man with an ibis head or the head of an ape. Now, while Thoth is the embodiment of all wisdom across all disciplines, the ape head variant of Thoth serves the purpose of ensuring that all written knowledge is misunderstood by humanity and therefore reserved for those who reach the true embodiment of Gnosis. So there's this idea that kind of goes with this very ancient idea of Thoth, this god of writing, of scribes, of information, of knowledge, that him being like the father of all knowledge, he's writing these things down to kind of pass it on, but then in his own myth is almost this shadow self, this mirror version of him, where all written information is going to be misunderstood by the ape version of him, right? So he is trying his best to write things down and to spread knowledge and wisdom through writing, and the alter ego of him is really going to be misconstruing information. It's making sure that information is sullied as you write it, that people are not just going to understand from words, because people really do have to understand through experience. So the written word, although it's often based in true gnosis, cannot impart true knowledge to anyone. So it's always misleading. True knowledge can only come from experience. So then how do we transmute book knowledge into true gnosis, right? If we want to truly gain life-changing knowledge from books, we must experiment ourselves with the information. I could read 100 books and never learn a thing, but if I experiment with the lessons contained in one book, I could gain the wisdom that's theoretically contained within thousands. So to learn from books, especially nonfiction books or business books or personal development books, we need to test the lessons for ourselves. Reading a book and never acting on it is truly the same as never reading it at all. So I really want to explain to you that, I know that I get asked a lot about book recommendations, what I'm reading. And when I'm asked, I always share. But I don't like to just come out and say, oh, these are all the books I'm reading right now. Because I do realize that because of this ape of Thoth idea, right, that I can give you guys tons of recommendations for books that I think would be useful to learn from. But if you guys read them and never act on them, right, never test the lessons out, it's like you didn't read them at all. You know what I mean? Because it's just pure information. It's almost like entertainment, right? So I really want to impart upon you the importance of experimenting with what you're learning, to test out what you're learning, especially when you are reading books. And a lot of the books that I'm going to share with you today are maybe outside of some people's comfort zones, maybe have a little bit of the occult, mystical, metaphysics for sure, elements involved with them. And so they really are going to push you outside of your comfort zone. But if you just read them and go, this is BS, right? You're never learning anything from them, right? But if you read them and say, okay, I don't believe in this now, but let me play with it. Let me play with the information. Let me try it. Let me do what this book says to do, right? And I'll tell you, all of the books that I'm going to share with you do give you strategies to execute on. So if you try it out for yourself, right, that's when you're going to learn something, right? Are you going to learn the same thing that's been outlined in the book? Maybe not, right? Sometimes you read a book and you try something out and the lesson that you get is not the same that they promised you. And that's fine, because you have your own path to gnosis and you have your own path to true wisdom. And what you learn from something through experience is what you needed to learn. It was what you were meant to learn, right? So I just want to encourage you guys not just to read, right, but to actually act on information that you read. That's the only way to really learn, right? You can sit around and read books all day and you really learn nothing. It's the person who goes out and tries that really ends up getting the benefit of the written word of knowledge that's been passed down, right? You have to go out there and try things for yourself. Okay. So this is the fact that I truly want you each to understand, because I want you to receive the information that you seek, right? If you want to learn and grow as humans in your experience, just giving you a list of books isn't going to be enough. I urge you to take action on these recommendations. Try them out for yourself. See what true wisdom you can gain. That could change your life forever. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the 10 books that changed my life. Oh, I'm going to go make sure I'm still on here. Okay, excellent. Okay, so here we go. First book, the one fiction book that's on this list, which is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Okay. So I've talked about this book maybe in passing before. Something that you should know about this book is that first of all, when I say that I've read all these books, most of these books, I'm pretty sure all of them probably, books on tape from Audible, right? So I usually don't read physical books. I listen to books on tape. That's how I ingest them. This book is a very quick read, but incredibly impactful. So much so that if I wake up in the morning and I just feel like I'm going to have a bad day, like I just feel like my vibe is so off, I will put on my headphones and I will listen to this book on tape in 2x speed, and it takes about like an hour. So I'll just sit there for an hour and listen to this book, and every time I listen to it, I learn something new. Like I get something from it that I've totally never felt about before or thought about before. It's really just that impactful. So what is The Alchemist? The Alchemist is a fable that is told about a young boy who is learning to follow the signs of the universe to his destiny, and why it's so important to follow what your passion is and follow what you want for your life. It's really, if you think about like the theme of everything that I'm trying to do here, right? When I say that like I'm trying to help people manage their time, energy, and expectations to go after their dream life, right? This is what it's all about. It's learning to witness the world in such a way that you'll be able to find your path in life by following your calling and your passion, and not ignoring, but managing and mitigating all the factors in life that can often keep us from our dreams, right? So this is such a beautiful book. It has so many metaphysical principles of what I would say are like the universal principles that are so important to learn. I literally could probably create a video for you guys every week for a year, and then maybe I'd feel like I've sufficiently dissected this book for you. Even though it's not a very long book at all, it has so much information about learning to trust yourself and learning to follow your passions and learning to work with the world, work with being in flow, and truly what that means to be in flow, to get to your personal destiny, your personal holy grail, the thing that you're here in the world to do, right? So, I mean, a lot of people ask me about like, how do I know what I should do? How should I start a business? Should I do this? Should I do that? I get a lot of questions about that. I can't answer that question for you. You only can answer those sorts of questions. And if you're someone who is kind of sort of I recommend this book to everyone, right? All these books that I'm mentioning, I recommend to everyone. But if you're someone who's particularly struggling with trying to understand what your purpose is, right? I think that this book could be an excellent choice for you to start with. Okay. So yeah, I don't want to give away too much about like all of these books, but I do want to give you guys, a little bit of primers. So that is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Link is down below if you want it. Such an amazing book. Like I said, every time I pick it up, well, audibly, right? Every time I turn it on, I feel like I learn something new, something nuanced about myself, about the world, the universe, the nature of our existence, the nature of God, true Gnosis, right? And so although this is like I said, it's a fiction book, right? There are principles that you can act on if you follow the examples of the story of the main character and the storyline, right? There are ways that you can find parallels with your own life to take action to move towards your own personal destiny. So The Alchemist, first recommendation. Next book that I highly recommend is a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. This is a way more practical book, and this, all the rest of these books are going to be traditional nonfiction. It's what it says, The Story of Success. This is an excellent book because it is a book that talks to you about the nature of success. I know that a lot of times people believe that some people get really lucky, right? That some people are naturally talented, that people can become overnight successes. I would like to hope that you guys understand this and have enough life experience to understand that that does not happen to anyone, right? That truly becoming an expert, becoming a success, becoming an outlier in your field, right, comes down to putting in the hours. And something that Malcolm Gladwell talks about in his book, I think is it 5,000 hours or 10,000 hours? 5,000 hours maybe it was, of doing a thing in order to become like a mastered of it, right? Not master, but being, an expert in it, right? You really have to put in the time if you want the results. And I think that's a very hopeful message, right? Because I think a lot of times it's easy for us to look around and be like, well, this person's successful because of that. That person's successful because of this, right? All these reasons why other people are successful, when really when you boil it down, their success came from them doing a thing over and over and over and over and over for an extended period of time. And I'll use myself as an example, because when I read this book, I did, of course, always use myself as an example, even in my head, was that, maybe you guys look at me and you think like, oh, wow, she is successful, right? Thank you very much. I would agree with you, right? But, you might think that like, oh, she just is naturally gifted at things, like it came easy to her. But you guys, if you look at my YouTube channel, I've been on YouTube since 2009, okay? I have made hundreds of videos. I still don't even have 100,000 subscribers yet, right? Not complaining about my level of subscribers. I think I'm doing great and wonderful. But it was a lot of time and energy and effort that got me to this place, right? And actually, it was so interesting. I went through and calculated roughly how many hours I may have spent from the beginning of my blog and my YouTube to the moment that I had gone and went full time for myself and started my business. And it ended up being roughly the 5,000 hours that Malcolm Gladwell talks about, which I thought was very interesting. That if I talk about, okay, well, this is about how much time I would spend a day, and this is for how long I did it, and, factoring out like, days off and things like that, I was like, oh, well, this is why I became successful. This is why I was able to do this, because I put in the time and effort and work. I hit the threshold, and then things started to click for me. So this is a very practical book, I think, for anyone who is interested in success and really understanding about what it takes to be successful. If you were hoping you could just take a magic pill, snap your fingers, or wave a magic wand, and you would be able to get all the information and experience necessary to be successful, sorry to break it to you, you're human like everyone else, and you have to go through the same process everyone else goes through. And this book really talks a lot about the research behind that. A lot of great stories about success, and people who, even stories about people that you'd think, because let's say they had an exceptionally high IQ, you think that they should be more successful in life, but because they did not spend the time, they did not get the results, right? So I think it's a great book. Highly recommend it. Okay, and Joanne says it's 10,000 hours. Thank you so much, Joanne. I always forget if it's 5 or 10. Haven't picked it up in like a year, or haven't turned it on year. I think I read it last year. Maybe, did I read it last year? Maybe I read it 2 years ago, actually. So thank you so much for the clarification. Hopefully you guys still make sense to you, what I just said. Okay, so number 3 on my list is a book called The Kybalion. It's written by, it says by the 3 Initiates, which is a very obscure title. This is absolutely one of the titles that I would firmly place into the alchemy / metaphysics / occult arena. Now, for any of you who are interested in the law of attraction, by the way, law of attraction is on this list. I put it later on in the list. And you understand basically that there's principles of the universe, right? Universal laws. Law of attraction likes to say that there's one universal law, and it's law of attraction is the only one that matters. In the Kybalion, they put forth 7 universal laws that are considered the 7 Hermetic principles. Hermetic referencing the original alchemist of history, who was called Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great Hermes, right? And there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of legend surrounding this person. Was he real? Was he not real? But he's considered, I guess, the father of modern alchemy. And these are the 7 Hermetic principles. Like if you think of the word hermit, it comes from Hermetic, right? So these are the 7 principles of the universe. And I'm not going to go into them all right now. Maybe I've considered going into this book in like maybe a video or a video series. And let me know if you guys are interested in that. But reading this book and reading through each one of those principles and understanding how it works, I have seen examples of these in my own life. Like I know that all of these principles are absolutely true. And so if you're someone who's interested in exploring the nature of reality, what's possible, and how to get more of what you want in life, I would say that the Kybalion is a great place to start. Incredibly esoteric. So this is definitely one of the things that's going to push you outside of a comfort zone for some people. But if you can approach it with a neutral mind, an open mind, and you actually look for and experiment with each of those 7 principles, I think you will see the reality of it in your life. And, so here's a spoiler alert. One of the principles is the universal laws that they talk about is embodied with the law of attraction. So one of them is basically the law of attraction. So it really is taking that one concept of law of attraction, it's just building a way bigger story, a way clearer picture. And I think that for me personally, learning about all 7 of them, right, has helped me understand just how things can change and how things can evolve and how I can make change in my life. If there's something I don't like around me, I understand, I look to see which of those principles is involved so that I can go ahead and affect, my energy onto that principle and change things in the direction that I want. So I know this is probably talking very vague right now, but this is another book I highly recommend, The Kybalion. Okay, here's some more kind of practical woo-woo information. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I became aware of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work a few years ago, and honestly, I've read a bunch of his books. I've read This is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I read You Are the Placebo and Becoming Supernatural. This was the first of his books that I read, though. I would recommend all of them. Okay, but this was the first one I read, and so I felt like this is the one that I feel like kind of kicked off my interest in him and my experimentation with the things that he talks about. Something I absolutely love about Dr. Joe Dispenza is, if you're familiar with the metaphysical occult community, right, there's a lot of different topics about energy that you could say are made up. I'm going to give you an example, the chakras. Okay, if you're familiar with what a chakra is, the energy centers of the body, that comes from Eastern philosophy. You could say, oh yeah, chakras aren't real, right? If you go to a doctor, a Western doctor, they'll be like, yeah, you don't have a chakra, okay? No such thing, right? However, Dr. Joe Dispenza has done a tremendous amount of work and research with legitimate research teams. I believe it was like a Harvard research team that came in to help him measure. He did measurements of people going through his practices in terms of meditation and transmuting energy and just really uplifting your vibration to help you become a better version of yourself, to help you to break out of your neural net pathways that you're kind of stuck into. He essentially has evidence, that came from a legitimate testing that there are energy centers in your body. And guess what? They align up shockingly well with the chakras. So it is interesting that he has been able to take some really old esoteric knowledge and really give it some scientific teeth, right? So, again, might push you outside of your comfort zone. Although I will say, because he is a doctor, and he does a lot of research and he does work with a lot of people, that you really get a really good scientific perspective. And, this idea of breaking the habit of being yourself, a lot of the information that I've gotten about the neural net and pathways and things like that, how your brain is wired to make you, and to keep you living in the past versions of yourself, really came from his teachings and the things that he's been talking about. And he's one of the people that's one of the reasons that I do daily meditation every day, right? Twice a day if I can do it. And I use his actual meditations very often. So definitely, if you're into the sort of scientific take on some more esoteric metaphysic principles, I think he's a great place to start. I think that the information makes sense, right? And he talks a lot about the science and the psychology behind why we are the way we are and how we can change it, right? Because he's all about breaking the habit of being yourself, becoming supernatural. You are the placebo, right? In that book, obviously, he talks a lot about the placebo effect. I believe he talks about it in all of his books, really, though, because they're really just staple parts of his, overall philosophy. So yeah, definitely recommend all of his books. This is the one I started with, and so I put it on the list. Great place to start if you're interested in this sort of topic as well. Whew, here we go. Next recommendation, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Now, Paramahansa Yogananda is the man who brought yoga to the Western world. He's the person who brought yoga to basically America, right? I picked up this book initially because I had read somewhere that there was one book that Steve Jobs would read and reread every year. And it was this book. And I'm like, well, if Steve Jobs, successful man he was, right? Thought that this book was important enough to read every single year, I should at least try it, right? And I can understand why Steve Jobs was obsessed with this book. So this book, I think it's an autobiography, okay, of a man who becomes basically a spiritual leader, a leader in yoga. it's a true story that has some fantastic elements in terms of his experience, in terms of having firsthand experience of metaphysical things that you would not believe were possible. I think in the West, I think that there's often this idea of, we'll say like, and I don't want to be insensitive to culture or anything like that. I think he uses the word swamis. He talks a lot about different swamis that he was familiar with and came in contact with in his time in India before he came to the US, while he was on his sort of spiritual quest to achieve enlightenment, going through this yoga quest. That they were able to do fantastic things. And I think that there are like tales that we kind of hear about, of people levitating or being able to like astral project. There's a story in the book about, was it him? Was it him himself? He apparently had an issue where was he wasting away? He was like way too thin. And like he was able to gain like 30 or 40 pounds in like 2 weeks, like very quickly, and then like dropped it again. It was very interesting about how we as individual people in consciousness have the ability to affect our reality in ways that we would just say is pure magic, right? If we saw it in real life, we'd be like, that's magic, that's supernatural, right? But these are real stories, right? Real stories. Again, I'm not my autobiography, so I can't promise it to you, but it is very fantastical and sometimes, but it really does show you the limits. I mean, there are no limits. That's really what he shows you, is that you can push the boundaries of what you think humans are capable of. And so it is a very interesting book in terms of using information outside of ourselves to gain information. It really is just a lovely book. And I can see why it's just so inspiring. It really is a tale of someone who was firsthand living in a time around people who were doing things that you would say are impossible, right? So I think it's very interesting. Obviously, you could read it with a grain of salt if you want to. There are things to execute on in a way. Mostly, I would say the idea of doing yoga, right? I do yoga sometimes as well. Would not call myself a yogi, but I do like to experiment with yoga. Definitely the idea of using energy in your body, very prevalent in this book as well. Just a great read. So I highly recommend. Next book, Reality Unveiled by Ziad Masri. Okay, now I read a lot of books about, and a lot of the books in that 100 books that I read in the last few years were about things that we would say are supernatural or magic, right? Being able to do magic on Earth, right? And obviously, of course, I'm of the mind that there is no such thing as magic. It's just science undiscovered. And I would say that out of all the books that I've read, right, this book did a great job of summarizing what it says here, the hidden keys of existence that will transform your life and the world. This book is just an overall great one-stop read for a lot of different principles and a lot of different examples of how reality is more than what we think we see and what we think we know and what we think we can taste and touch and smell. Okay? So that is why I recommend this book. A lot of the things that he talks about in this book, I read in other books, right? If you go through a lot of these metaphysical books, a lot of the same concepts come up over and over and over, and a lot of the same studies or research and things like that tend to come up over and over again. I really liked this one because I thought that it was brief, but it brought a broad spectrum look at a lot of different types of supernatural, esoteric, metaphysical questions about reality and the nature of reality and our awareness as human beings. So yeah, Reality Unveiled. It was, I believe, I put a link down below in the description box. I believe you can get it as a book now. But when I first read it last year, maybe 2 years ago, it was only an Audible exclusive. Okay. So I don't know if like maybe they took the Audible exclusive and then turned it into a book. I'm not sure. Maybe the audiobook was just an Audible exclusive. But yeah, so all of these books, you can get them on Audible if you're interested too. But I left you links down below too. So yeah, Reality Unveiled. Exactly what it says. Unveiling mysteries of our actual reality. If that's something that you're interested in, definitely something, I'm totally into. Oh, Power versus Force. Okay, this is the next one. Oh, wow. Another one I would like to point out that is written by an MD, David R. Hawkins. It says, The Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior. I don't know if I feel like that's the best subtitle for this book. Power versus Force talks about the kinesiological approach to gaining information outside of yourself. If you're not familiar with this approach of kinesiology, this is something my dad taught me this a long time ago. There's this ability that humans have to really use like a sixth sense. Well, I already think we have six senses, so I'm going to go seventh sense, an extra sense that helps them determine whether or not things are good or bad, right? It really helps us to draw upon our instincts using our physical body. I'll go ahead and give you the one example of like a test that they do that you can use with other people. There's this test where you can have someone, and maybe you've seen someone do this like on Oprah or something, because I've seen this out. You have someone stand up in front of you and you put their arms down, out on their sides, and they're supposed to try to keep their arms straight. And then another person, their partner, you ask them a question, right? And I think it has to have a yes or no answer. And if they will the partner will ask them the question and then push down on the arms. And if the test subject, will say the person with their arms out, is able to keep their arms and keep resistance, the answer is a yes. But if the answer is a no or a negative, right, they'll lose muscle. Their muscles won't be able to hold. They'll buckle under the pressure of someone pressing down on them. And this isn't like someone coming and like, taking a kid and then an adult coming and pushing arms down, right? Obviously, you're going to do that. It is like a firm pushing down, but not something where you're going to break someone's arm off. If you've ever seen that test, right? This book goes into that and talks about how to use the fact that our bodies instinctually know, we will say good versus bad, or yes versus no, and know sort of the path for us, no information that we do not actually have in our brains, right? So that our bodies can be used, honestly, as like litmus tests. That's the best way I can explain this book. Definitely don't think that this Determinants of Human Behavior is necessarily the best, most accurate description for what this book is about. But yes, if you are interested in understanding that, and I do personally use this method, and I find that it's actually very useful. And I'm not saying the method that this test with the arms that requires two people. There are other tests and other versions of this test that you can use for yourself. Maybe one day we'll go into it. It's maybe a little bit woo-woo to go into right now, but I use my own personal testing method to give myself yes or no answers. And I find that it's actually very accurate. And I've become more able to trust myself and make choices on things that maybe I felt like I didn't have enough information on, right? By going on the information my body knows just from existing in this world where we all share energy. So very interesting, a little bit out there as well. Very interesting. Okay. Some people would definitely call this pseudoscience. People would call it Joe Dispenza pseudoscience too. So, obviously take everything with a grain of salt when I say that these are doctors writing these things, but keep an open mind, because testing it out for yourself, seeing it in use yourself, that's really what's going to make the difference, right? That's where you're going to get true wisdom and really learn about yourself. So that's why I'm like, let's not take anything as being like, gospel truth. Let's try it out for ourselves. Okay. Handson Healing. This is a great book. Okay, so in my studies of metaphysics and the occult and all that stuff, I think you guys, many of you may be familiar with the term Reiki, right? Reiki energy healing. So I was very interested in the idea of Reiki energy healing. In my research, I found some like controversial thoughts about it. Obviously, you could be like, Alexis, people cannot heal other people with energy. And if you think that, I've lost all respect for you. I'm not saying that I believe that to the fullest extent, but I was interested in researching the topic, okay? Again, trying to understand the limits of our reality and exactly how, not just humans, all energy is interconnected. So I had come across someone who, I forget who it is. It was just a speaker who I trusted their opinion, and they said that this book was probably the best book on energy healing, again, written by a doctor, William Bengston, in which energy healing has truly been methodically tested, whether or not it works. The answer is it can work. It can perhaps work, and it has been kind of, they use a scientific process in order to measure what's going on in terms of, the scientific process, in terms of making sure that you've got, the test groups and people aren't aware and everyone's blind or double blind or whatever it is in the studies. Again, you can go ahead and say that they messed up on the test and made up information, whatever. But I've actually used this method before and it worked. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, did it work or do I just think it worked? And then I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter because I got the outcome I wanted. And I'll tell you the story about what I did with this was many moons ago, Sully got sick and was throwing up for days. I know what it was. He ate too many treats because it was in October when he was doing his training, when we went to go see the trainer. And we had to give him like a treats. And so he ate too many treats, right? Because when you're doing like one of these training sessions for an hour, you got to, you're giving them multiple treats. And we thought the treats were small enough, but he just ate too much. And then it started him throwing up, and he was throwing up for days. Well, it ended up being that like we couldn't go to the doctor, the vet was closed. I didn't know if I should take him to the emergency vet yet, talk to some people. And it was like, you can still wait. Like as long as you're getting him to drink things, even if he's throwing things up, as long as he's still active and things like that. Like if he's acting normal, don't worry about it right now, but obviously take him to the vet ASAP. So I used this on him one morning, like a half an hour after he had like thrown up again. And after that, he stopped throwing up. And we don't know why. And so you could say I'm crazy. That's fine. Again, do I believe that it worked? Do I believe that it didn't work? I believe that I did something. And then after that something, the desired outcome that I had came to be. I'm not saying that this is going to heal everyone's ails, but I think that it is possible because I like to look at the world as full of possibilities, especially since doing all this research. And I go, yeah, definitely there's more to the world than, what they tell us to believe, right? And so, again, if you're interested in that idea of Reiki energy healing, I think this is something that is interesting to look into. A very kind of like, I guess, a well-respected doctor who went through this, right? I don't know. I haven't done all the backstory research on him, but someone that I do trust had recommended this book. And it sounds like they did a really good, thorough job of doing the testing. So, yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, try it out for yourself. See if you can get your dog to stop throwing up. Okay? Next book, The Field. By Lynne McTaggart. Okay. I read this a few years ago. Maybe this is one of the early books in my metaphysical journey. This book is about the quest for the secret force of the universe. True. Okay. So I've kind of already sort of talked a little bit about the idea that I am interested in the fact that I think that energy is interconnected. So the energy in me right now, I know we're talking right now halfway face to face, but I believe that energy is connected through a different field, like energy is an ocean all around us. Okay. And so my energy right now is actually touching yours, even though you might be living on the other side of the world, right? You could be in Texas, you could be in Canada, you could be in India, wherever you are. Maybe you're a neighbor in New Jersey or something, how far or how close you are to me. Our energy, I believe, is part of a field that does connect. And this book talks about a lot of different interesting research and studies that have gone into understanding that field and understanding that we have access to more information, again, outside of ourselves, that really show how interconnected people are, and not just people, but like people and things and objects. Anything that exists in our physical reality is part of this, right? It's all part of the field, right? That I see energy as just being like a sea. And although as humans, we have eyes and we have ears and nose and mouth and touch and smell and taste and all that, we have these physical senses that are operated through our brain, that there's more than what we can just process in our heads. So another great book if you're interested in that, right? It was one of the first books I read on it, and it had a lot of eye-opening information, which is why it was very impactful for me. Okay, is Law of Attraction the last book? Hold on. I think Law of Attraction might be the last book that I put on the list. Yeah, it is. Okay, so here's our 10th and final book, Law of Attraction. Okay, so this is something you guys may be familiar with the term Abraham Hicks, Esther and Jerry Hicks. If you're not familiar with what that is, but you've heard like Abraham Hicks. So a couple, Esther and Jerry Hicks, Jerry is no longer with us, Esther is still alive. They began, we'll say, a spiritual journey that was prompted by meeting someone who they believed, the person believed as well, notable person, I guess, was able to channel a higher being from somewhere else. They were channeling information, speaking for a being or entity that was not on planet Earth. Okay? they experimented with it, and Esther began channeling. And she doesn't like to use the word channeling, so I hate to say that in case anyone here is like a purist with law of attraction. But she began to receive information from, talk to, um, a, it's a collective entity known as what they said Abraham is what she calls him. So them, it's more than one person, but they're not people, they're non-physical entities. So the idea is that these are a collection of beings that are not in a physical form, that they are just in pure energy form elsewhere, somewhere else, and yet they still have the ability to move through people, right? And they move through Esther, and Esther gives information about this universal law that they think is the most important universal law, which is law of attraction, which is essentially that what you think becomes reality, what you put out, you get back, sort of a thing. That you create your own reality based on your expectations and what it is that you want. I know there's a lot of controversy around the law of attraction. And, one of the big things that they talk about, Esther talks about this a lot, is like, oh, Esther, are you saying that, or Abraham, are you saying that, these bad things that happened to me, I wanted them to happen? And she says, no, you didn't ask for this to happen to you, but it did because somewhere you attracted it to you, right? So it wasn't your intention for something bad to happen, like you lose your job, or someone gets sick, or get into a car accident or whatnot. And it could be little things like lost your keys, etc., things like that. You didn't ask for it, right? You didn't know what you were doing. But the thing is the law of attraction is always working no matter what. So, like I already kind of went into when we talked about the Kybalion, the law of attraction, according to the Kybalion, is only part of one law of the universe. But Esther Hicks, Abraham, who speaks through her, talks about law of attraction being the most important one because it's how you can, we'll say, manifest your own destiny, right? So very interesting. I had been familiar with The Secret years ago, and so I thought I really understood. I thought I understood law of attraction. And back when I read this, read The Secret, or I think I watched the movie, I was like, oh, this is great. I see examples of this in my own life all the time. But really learning about the law of attraction and listening to the teachings and listening to the book have been much more eye-opening in terms of the process that is required to help keep your vibration, right? Your vibration, your energy, your emotions have to be in a certain state to get the things that you want. And it's not that, yes, I meant what I said there. Your emotions do have to be in a certain state to get what you want, but your emotions always dictate what you get, because your emotions are your body's interpretation of your energetic vibration. What is an energetic vibration? Oh my God, you guys, I don't know. It's how you feel, right? It's like the wavelength that you're operating on in your mind. Is it something that can be measured? Probably not. But it's something that you can feel and experience for yourself. I know a lot of people try to ask me a gotcha question. I'm like, I am not Abraham. Do not ask me these questions. I only know the experience of when I feel happy and high vibe, what that feels like for me, like what that blissful, happy, energetic energy means for me. And I know that when I get into that state, I get more of what I want. But when I'm sad, depressed, all I'm attracting to me is like negative things, right? So you can read this book if you'd like to learn more about it. Something else I'll tell you is that if you Google Abraham Hicks in YouTube, or you YouTube it, there are tons and tons and tons and tons of recordings on all different topics that she's been doing since they started this. What was it, like in the 70s or 80s? I think they started doing this. So it's been a long time that she's been doing this work with Abraham. And like I said, her husband passed away several years ago. So, the way that this book is presented is actually dialogues between, it says here, the original dialogues between Abraham and Jerry Hicks. Now, it's Esther speaking for Abraham. Jerry would ask questions. And so that is the format for a lot of the material you'll see with Abraham Hicks. A lot of these audio recordings and things that you'll see, and sometimes clips of different events that she holds, in which people just they ask questions, and Abraham, through Esther Hicks, answers them. So, law of attraction, highly recommend it. Great intro to like energy, vibe, getting what you want in your life, which I think is the ultimate thing that I think a lot of us are looking for, right? That's what I want to create, the life I want to create. And so I want to learn how to use all these universal laws to get what I want, right? That's ultimately the end goal here. So with that, we will go back to, hold on. Just me. Just me. Okay, and let's go ahead and I will go through some comments. And yeah, okay, so I don't think anyone had really any questions. Oh, Rachel Leon said pseudo-intellectual, so true. Yeah. I mean, and so it's so funny. So like I say that and I don't say it, I guess it is a little bit derogatory in some extent, but I would even consider like myself a pseudo-intellectual sometimes. Now, I will say that with these books, like I said, I've executed on strategies, right? So I feel like I have firsthand information. But this is one of the reasons why sometimes it takes me a long time to like tell you guys things or like share information or share books or strategies, because I don't want to be the person who's just like regurgitating information from someone else's experience. I want to be the person who is synthesizing my own information and sharing it with you. I think it's very easy for someone like me, like influencer online, right? Like productivity guru, right? To come off like that. And I think sometimes I definitely do. But I think that this is why it's so important for us all to try the things that we're being asked, right? Don't just accept something. I mean, what's the point of accepting it and just not using it, or just saying that you've had the, I don't know. You have to try it for yourself. You have to synthesize information for yourself. You have to let it integrate into you and see what comes out, right? So now yeah, if you guys have any questions. Oh, what is this? Oh, here's a good thing to say. Okay, when your favorite business guru turns out to be your favorite witch. Are you saying me? I will be honest with you. I do not associate with that W word, okay? I actually consider it to be slightly derogatory. I think people use that word. I've done a lot of research into what that word really means. And I do not think it actually applies to me. I like to consider myself a mystic, or you can consider me an alchemist, because I'm more interested in energy and how it flows, how we're all one through the energetic field. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm the W word, if you're insinuating me. The Law of Attraction, Trina said she bought a long time ago, never read it. Trina, this is your sign from the universe that it's time for you to read that book. So yeah, go ahead, pick up The Law of Attraction, read it, try it out, just try it out, like see it. Like I think a lot of times people resonate with it because I think there is this inherent feeling that we get that sometimes we know that we're causing things to happen, but we just don't understand why or how, you know what I mean? Or how to control the mechanism. Again, magic is science undiscovered. I think that a lot of these books give us a lot of good information about how to control those mechanisms, which I think is very important. No reason to be sorry. I did not take it as a personal offense. When people use that word, I'm just like to be very clear. I do not associate myself with that word. That's not what I am. And I feel like there are people who would use that word to describe themselves. And I feel like to call me that is a disservice to others. So, and I feel like a lot of times people generally misunderstand what that word even really means. And so sometimes I think people could be using it as a derogatory towards me. I didn't think you were, though. I'm just spiritual, just mystical. Mystic trench coat. So now, I would love if you guys would share some books recommendations of your own, right? So this is one of the things you guys said. You want to do a book chat. I told you the 10 books I liked, why I liked them, what I think you can expect from them. Tell me some books. I'm going to put your comments up on screen. Oh, you know what I have right here? So funny because you guys can kind of see this. This is not on my list, but here's another book if you guys wanted physical books. I have 2 books actually sitting on my desk. I talked about this a long time ago, actually. Miracles Now. This is by Gabby Bernstein. This is a very practical hand guide that literally just has strategies for how to, let's see, what did she say? 108 life-changing tools for less stress, more flow, and finding your purpose. This is a great book. If you guys are interested in that. Another book that I have, I use this for reference. This isn't something I just go through and read. This is the I Ching, which is that, how old is this? Is it 5,000 years old? I forget how old this is. I talk about the I Ching sometimes in some classes, but this is the most ancient divination text that is survived in the world. This comes from China. And I like to experiment with the I Ching. Number one, not necessarily even the divination aspect, but there are like inside of here, the way that the hexagrams, if you're familiar with the I Ching, it's 6 lines graphics, like these images that are supposed to be able to foretell your future, or read energies, I would say, in a situation to help you make decisions about whether or not you should or should not do things. There's a lot of like just really interesting practical advice about like humans here. Just like the way humans act. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Lisa, I think that I would say The Alchemist is the one, like I said earlier, I put that one first for a reason, because I do think that's like the most important book to read, even though it's a fiction. And it's the one that I reread the most often. Like I can't even tell you how many times I've listened to a book on Audible. Sorry, I don't know how you really say that, right? I have gone through that book so many times. Yeah, so I would say that one is very impactful. And then if we want to talk about one of the woo-woos, maybe the Kybalion maybe has a lot of, like, it has a lot of that, like, universal law stuff. So if you are, I will say that I do think there's a little bit of a learning curve with the Kybalion. Like, I don't know if I feel like someone who has no history of understanding metaphysical principles is just going to be like, oh, I get it, right? Maybe it's a little bit more like mid-level, but that one as well is very helpful for me. Okay, so Edie says that the favorite book she read in 2020 is The Bullet Journal Method. It talks about intentional living and focusing on your true meaning. Excellent. And that's Ryder Carroll's book, right? I didn't actually read it. I knew it'd come out. People were making a fuss about it, and I'm sure it's delightful. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Rachel. Okay, you're going to love this. Rachel, I considered putting the 4 Agreements on this list. I took it off because as much as I thought like it was so important, I just felt like there were more things. There were just more important books. But like if that 10 had been expanded, the 4 Agreements would have been on there. Excellent, excellent book. What is it? Miguel Ruiz, I think, wrote the 4 Agreements. I just want to give everyone context. So when you're, if you're watching this replay, watching it live, I don't have all the books that are being suggested by the community linked below, but the 4 Agreements, excellent. I have that one on my Audible as well. Very short book, very to the point about the 4 rules that you should live by, personal rules to just be like an awesome human being. Excellent. Okay, come on, you guys. There are a bunch of you here. So I'd love you guys to share some more feedback because I'm making this book list for you guys. And there are many of you here and not the same amount of thumbs up. So if you guys could go ahead and give this a thumbs up, I would very much appreciate it. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, so while I'm waiting for people to decide on book titles they want to share and give this video a thumbs up, I'm going to just tell you guys some fun things. Who else has cut their hair while in quarantine? I did last weekend. I just like trimmed my edges, but that was fun. And I'm not someone, if you guys know, I don't go to get my hair cut very often. Like maybe once a year if you're lucky. It's really more like once every year and a half, but I did need to cut it because my ends were getting really raggedy. And I know that some of them, if you're looking at this, like, it doesn't look like you got your hair cut. I know some, like, I didn't touch like the front part because I didn't want to do this long bang. I was afraid to cut it. I was afraid to cut it and like mess up. So I just basically did my length. What else? Well, if you guys don't have any more suggestions for me live, that's fine. You guys can always think about the books and go ahead and leave in the comments. I guess I could wrap it up now, okay? So you guys can get back to your Saturday afternoon. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Let me go ahead and put my little outro on. Oh. Okay, Rachel says she likes the 48 Laws of Power. I don't agree with most of the rules, but it's insightful on how people act and think. Who writes it? Do you know? I just want to make sure everyone has like full information. But that sounds good. I don't think I've ever read that. I don't think so. I will look into it for sure. But thank you. Okay. So, yeah, I think we should just maybe go ahead and wrap up because it looks like, we're not so chatty today. It's okay. But thank you guys so much for coming and being here. For those of you guys who are live, again, I'm so sorry about the mishap with the email. I will try to make sure that does not happen again. Of course, if you would like to see more of behind the scenes of my productivity, life, and business, go here to my Instagram and follow me at Miss Trenchcoat and get kind of more behind the scenes of what's going on with me. Check the description box for the links to the books that I shared and for the link to the live events page. Something I do need to tell you guys is that next week I will not be here. I think I told you guys last time. I told you I didn't know if I'd be here this week. My father is having surgery, and I thought it was supposed to be today. He messed up the date. It is next week. So I will not be live next week, most likely. So if you don't see an email, you don't see an update, that's why. I hope you guys have a great week. Of course, as soon as possible, I will be back to doing my weekly streams, and I cannot wait to see you guys. So yeah, if you're watching the replay, leave me your comments below on your favorite books. I would love to hear them. If you'd like to check out some of my productivity tools, go ahead over to thecharmshop.com. If you're interested, I have a book. It's a workbook called You Got This. I probably should have somehow put this in my slideshow, but I didn't. My You Got This workbook is a goal setting and planning workbook for getting your life organized and taking action on the desires of your heart. So if you're interested in that, it does have a section that's all about mindset. So there is like a metaphysical section to that. So if you want, check it out. And I'll go ahead and put it in the description for you guys as well, because I probably should have. So thank you guys so much for coming, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.